The day has finally come. SWOOP's interview with Joshua David Evans has dropped. A lot has been revealed, and today I want to share my opinions on it. To start, I want to commend SWOOP and her team for the amazing work that they've done. I think they've done a great job with trying to get all the information they can about the story, and by doing so, they were able to expose a fake. I think she really did her due diligence with asking for proof from both sides. No way would we have ever learned the truth about Johnny if someone didn't look for all the facts, so I want to give her her flowers. Props to you, SWOOP. Overall, I believe Josh. I think one green flag that we shouldn't ignore is the fact that he's not trying to come back to YouTube. To me, that shows that he's not doing all this for money, but to clear his name. Unfortunately, you always have to check if money is involved because oftentimes that's what's motivating someone to speak up. I noticed that with Cody Tyler. I missed it with Johnny, but that was the case there. But here, there doesn't seem to be any financial incentives for Josh. Also, his story adds up. I could believe that he grew up as your typical Christian Southern boy, and I'm aware of the cultural norms that exist there as opposed to other regions of the US. Specifically, when he explained why he even tried to be Johnny's mentor, I believed that explanation. Southern culture is more community oriented. They're more connected there than people are in, say, the Northeast. It's not normal to struggle alone in the South. I'm sure it's similar to other collectivistic cultures where you really defer to your elders, especially when you're lost. That explanation just makes total sense to me. I get that. Josh's explanation as to why he kind of ghosted Johnny also made sense. He never personally invited Johnny to his shows as this sort of special guest. He simply encouraged him to attend as a response to Johnny's mentioning of wanting to go. This, along with something else Josh mentioned, reminded me of YouTube culture back in the 2010s. Back then, it was a part of the culture to have a lot of fan interaction, especially on Twitter and in the YouTube comments. It was very much normalized to essentially thank the fans a lot and to really almost prop up your fans to almost be at the same level as you are, because they're the ones who even got you there in the first place. I think nowadays, with people's awareness of the possible negative consequences of having that much interaction with fans, it's normal to have much more distance from fans. But yeah, I think when it comes to Josh and Johnny, it was a situation where this quote kind of applies where the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think, assuming that Josh is being truthful, that he was taken advantage of. I think Johnny took advantage of Josh's kindness. I think this whole situation could be a lesson for Josh to maybe have a bit more discernment when it comes to people that he tries to help in the future. Be good, but be strong. Don't harm yourself in the process of helping others. Of course, Johnny was a kid at the time, so how could he have expected all this to come out of it? Especially back then. I think now we have more of an understanding of how, quote, clout goblins really are a big issue. So I don't say this to victim blame Josh in any way. I don't think he should have seen this coming at all. I'm just saying this now as a post-situation lesson that we can learn, that all of us can learn. Not just Josh, just anybody who ever has to deal with people, really, you know? It's not an exaggeration to be suspicious of someone who has so much to gain when it comes to attention and money. You really do have to be careful. Of course, hindsight is 2020, and when you combine all the factors involved in this situation, the time period, YouTube culture at the time, the culture that Josh came from, Colleen's personality, you get one hell of an outcome. Now, I want to pause right here to make a note of when Josh revealed what people said to him regarding his relationship with Colleen. Someone told him that this is Colleen's train, and you're either aboard her train or you'll miss her and she'll be off to the next stop. Something about Colleen being the conductor of her own train reminded me of something. A certain Clout train, perhaps? I don't know. It's weird. It's almost like my depiction of her impact was accurate. But anyways, I won't dwell on that. Just look at one of the comments on that video to know what I'm referencing. So, along with elaborating on the Johnny situation, Josh talks more about his relationship with Colleen. Something that stuck out to me was when he revealed that he suggested and eventually attended couples counseling sessions, even if Colleen wouldn't show up, which she most often didn't. That stuck out to me because that's consistent with his claims of working on himself as a person and trying to better himself and right the wrongs that he's committed in the past. That revelation is consistent with his claims that he's grown since 2016 and he's sorry for handling things improperly. It's one thing to claim that you're doing the work, that you're working on yourself, that you've matured as a person. And it's another thing to say, look, it's been, how long has it been? 7 years since then? It's been 7 years. It's been almost 10 years. And starting 7 years ago, I've been in counseling for couples counseling. And since then, I've been in individual counseling. I mean, that's a very long time. That is a very long time to be going through therapy. And when you combine that with the fact that he hasn't come back since to really get any sort of attention online, he's really only come back in 2023. He didn't even say anything in 2020. He only came back in 2023 after he realized, or I can't speak for him, but after it's been made abundantly clear that Colleen is not viewed well, that Colleen has truly been exposed and people believe the truth now, that's when he came out to say his side of the story. And from the beginning, he's always said, I've also been gaslit too. I've been a victim of Colleen's too. It's not like he's here trying to slam dunk on her cancellation, you know? It's not like he's like, oh yeah, and she took all my money and she did this and that. Like, he's only saying things that are very consistent with what everyone else is saying. And that's something that Adam keeps talking about a lot, Adam McIntyre. He keeps talking about how everything that Adam McIntyre says is consistent with what Josh says. That level of consistency, sometimes it's a bad thing. Like with Johnny, it's a case of trying to copy other people's stories. But I think in the case of Josh, and of course in the case of Adam too, it's the fact that nobody is saying anything that deviates from what's being put out there. It just makes it seem more likely to be honest. So I really liked that. I liked how he mentioned that, again, because it's just more evidence for me to piece together his story and his position. And that is, again, consistent with the position of somebody who is trying to better themselves and who's not engaging in any more harmful activities than they've already done. So I liked hearing that. One thing that I didn't like, however, was when he talked about being just as new to fame as Johnny was to being near someone who's famous. He spoke about how it was his first time giving someone an autograph, like almost as a way to pay himself at the same level as Johnny. I didn't like that, but I do love how SWOOP swooped in to explain to him that the power imbalance was still there, even if he wasn't aware of it at the time. It rubbed me the wrong way when he said that, I'm not gonna lie. It felt to me like he was being overly defensive when he was making that claim. Like, it sounds to me he's trying to not come off as the perpetrator. And that's different from someone like Johnny, who was always trying to come off as the victim. He's not trying to come off as the victim, but he's still trying to come off as not the perpetrator. And to me, it's still not right. It's still not entirely accurate. He can admit the truth and possibly even be wrong in that situation and still not deserve what Johnny did to him. Those things could happen simultaneously. At the very least, that moment was a yellow flag to me. It showed me something that I honestly kind of noticed throughout the entire interview, which was that he was clearly there with an agenda. Now, I'm not saying that as a negative thing, but there is a difference between saying what happened and even saying why it happened, and then going on to minimize or maximize what you're saying. It's difficult to listen to somebody who's trying to look better, even if they're mostly telling the truth, because then you have little moments like this where they're giving themselves too much of the benefit of the doubt. Like, it kind of makes me question his sort of sweet Southern boy persona, especially when he talks about his heart going out to Colleen, and he mentions feeling mean whenever he's about to say something negative about someone else. Those moments didn't feel super genuine to me. Maybe I'm a cynic, but I think those moments are moments of exaggeration or just trying to help himself look good so that he can achieve his goal, which, as I said, was redeeming his reputation. The only moment that makes me almost believe he's telling the truth when it comes to feeling bad for Colleen is ironically when he responds to one of SWOOP's questions about her. She asked him if he forgave Colleen for everything and he admitted that he didn't. That response and the way he said it makes me think he still cares about her in some way. Now, I don't think he has any romantic feelings for her anymore. I think that ship has sailed a long time ago. But it's clear to me that he still holds some resentment towards her because of how she mistreated him, which is totally understandable. I definitely think for the sake of his mental health, though, he does need to get to a place where he doesn't care about her anymore. Now, I'm about to share my totally non-professional opinion, which is that Colleen is a narcissist. Narcissists only ever have loyalty towards themselves, and they always make sure that they're taken care of. So in my opinion, it's a complete waste of energy to care for a narcissist, positively or negatively. They feed off of your emotions. So if you're fortunate enough to have them out of your lives the way Josh is, I think it's definitely in your best interest to stop caring about them. Of course, that's a difficult thing to do when you've been intimately involved with someone like that. I understand that. I'm not saying this to imply that it's easy or that it's common sense. I'm just saying it's already unhealthy to care about someone who isn't a narcissist in this kind of situation. It's just straight up poisonous for yourself to still care about someone who is a narcissist. You really just gotta care about you. Forget her. She deserves this, dude. It's just a cancellation. She's not going to jail. She'll be fine. In my opinion, she'll be able to bounce back. So that's just a piece of advice, I guess, for Josh, but also anybody else who's in this kind of situation. Don't waste your energy on that person. They need it, but they don't really need it. You know what I mean? Like, they will find it wherever else they can find it. You don't have to be the sacrificial lamb for that. No one has to be the sacrificial lamb for that. They can get their narcissistic supply elsewhere. They don't need to ruin you in the process. That's all I'm saying about that. One moment that had me gasping, like actually audibly gasping, was when Josh said that Colleen would openly flirt with the director of her Netflix show. I don't know why. There was just something so disturbing, so icky about someone trying to just cheat out in the open, like trying to cheat, not even successfully cheating. It's like the least you could do is have some shame, like feel some shame about it. Like at least have the decency to feel some shame about it. To be shameless, to just shamelessly try to cheat and then end up cheating, but then you would have to cheat with someone else because you didn't even succeed the first time. It's just crazy to me. It's disturbing to me and it's gross to me. I don't like that. And even though that's technically something that's common amongst people in relationships, I still gasp when I hear about it. Like I don't like it. It's weird. It's weird. It's bad. I don't know. It gets to me, I guess. So another thing that Josh talked about was how toxic it is to seek validation from social media. That was also a huge part of social media culture back in the 2010s. Don't get me wrong, people still do this now, but I feel like it was way more extreme back then, especially on YouTube. Nowadays, a lot of the big YouTube channels are full-on productions with an entire crew of people working on the videos. Back in the 2010s, it was every man for himself. It was random, regular, individual people who were blowing up on YouTube. You didn't have this entire production with all this money backing you up the way that people have nowadays. Most of those people had zero ties whatsoever to the entertainment industry, and so getting popular on YouTube was especially a big deal for them. Again, I think people are more conscious now of how harmful it is to take things so far on social media. Back then, if you remember, we had YouTubers like Gabby Hanna, Rice Gum, David Dobrik, all kind of clawing their way to the top, heavily relying on external validation through views. If you remember, that was a huge deal back in those days. To the point where Gabby would defend an R-wordist. David virtually set up an entire R-word scenario to happen. And Rice Gum was walking around building an entire career off of insulting little kids online. Like, it kind of got pretty unhinged back in the day. All this just for attention and money. And I think in the 2010s especially, people were even more into the attention part than the money. But now I think people have shifted towards caring more about the money than the attention. My closing thoughts are this. Colleen is once again screwed. She is in so much trouble. Considering how many people she's silenced over the years, I do think it's only fair that the roles are now reversed. Everyone is sharing their experiences except for Colleen herself because she's wrong. She silenced everyone else for long enough. Now it's time for her to be quiet. This isn't the end of the Colleen Ballinger saga. These things don't end until the YouTuber makes their next move career-wise, be it coming back to the internet or leaving it forever. I'm curious to see what happens next. This story has had a lot of twists and turns, a lot of deception. We've had multiple people come off as both victims and perpetrators at one point or another. I saw that Jojo Siwa recently spoke in defense of Colleen on Howie Mandel's podcast. That didn't really help her. I don't know why she thought it would. Like, nothing is gonna help Colleen in this situation except for her apologizing. I do think she could still apologize and continue making videos and be totally fine. I think she won't be as successful. No, I don't think she'll be as successful as she was before this situation, but I do think she could continue to make a living for herself online. And she's lucky that she still has that opportunity considering everything that's happened. When I first made a video about the story, I mentioned that the moral of the story is to not bring undue harm to others. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. I think the moral of this side of the story is its complement. Don't allow harm to be brought onto yourself. Again, I don't mean this in a victim blaming way. I mean this in a self-preservation way. I mean this in a, if you can avoid it, do so kind of way. I don't feel that Josh bears any responsibility whatsoever for how Johnny and Colleen treated him. That being said, I do think he can learn to be better at discernment as well as walking away when he recognizes red flags. I think that's something that we can all be better at. Just as I believe we all should not harm others just because we can get away with it, I believe we all should protect ourselves from being taken advantage of by people with bad intentions. Easier said than done, I understand that. I say these lessons more so as goals for all of us to have, to achieve over time, rather than standards we should immediately meet. I'm not saying this to say that we all should just be perfect because now we know what we need to do and now, boom, all of a sudden we can never be taken advantage of again. No, I'm not saying it like that. And I'm not saying it like that towards Josh or anybody who is ever in this kind of situation. I'm just, again, saying this as a lesson to be learned, something that we can work on, and something that we could hopefully be on the winning side of next time. And by winning, I just mean not being hurt. So those are all my thoughts on SWOOP's interview with Joshua David Evans. Again, I want to reiterate, I don't mean to victim blame Josh or anybody else I might have mentioned at all. I'm only trying to gain some wisdom from this situation and learn how to deal with people similar to those involved in it. Let me know what you thought about the interview, as well as my takes on it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I'm Epic Charismatic, and I hope to see you at my next video. Peace!